Hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to a special edition of the FutureSox podcast. Recently, Baseball America put together a new updated top 10 prospect list. Bill Mitchell was tasked with that, and he hopped on to join James and myself, and he ran us through his thoughts on the White Sox farm system. Thanks for watching. Enjoy. Welcome, Bill. Thanks for hopping on tonight. We appreciate it. How you doing tonight?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, so obviously within the last week and a half here, we've got a big trade here with the White Sox. We know that you didn't write up the return, the profiles on the guys, but what did you think of the return for the Garrett Crochet trade?
I thought it was very good. Getting back two top 100 players and a useful infielder, Mydroth, now that I know how to pronounce his name, it could be in the starting lineup this season, either at second base or shortstop. And then I don't know a whole lot about Wikelman Gonzalez, but four pretty decent players. And again, two top 100 guys. I thought that was a good return.
Yeah, we know that the White Sox were looking at Kyle Teal in the draft, and he ended up going a pick before they ended up getting their pick. So what do you think about a Kyle Teal in general?
Just from what I've heard about him, he's probably close to big league ready, which gives him two catchers in the top 100, a position that is pretty weak industry-wide. So it's a good thing to have. But I could see more likely him than Kiro because he's a little more experienced, counting his college experience. I could see him moving into the catching spot maybe sometime in the year.
Bill, you've covered this system when it was at pretty close to the bottom, when, you're having a tough time finding 30 players. I think it's, within a year's time, it's gotten pretty good. I don't need you to rank it, but how much better has this system gotten, you think?
Well, I looked, and during the summer, Baseball America, in their organization rankings, had the White Sox number 8, which is a big improvement from when they were 29 or 30. I don't know how. I can't speak to the 7 organizations that were ahead of them. I see ones like the Mariners that are still a strong organization, and a few others. But I think they probably are moving up just at least a little bit, and it's good. What I see, though, is there's more depth to the organization, too. Before the trade deadline of last year, when they got Nastrini and Bush and et cetera, I was so glad to get more players into the organization because I could drop off guys off the list that didn't belong. They weren't top 30 guys. They just didn't belong there. So I was glad with that. Now, with this group, I had to bump players that legitimately would be top 30 prospects. So that's the big difference, much more depth.
So, obviously a guy that's ranked high for a while, Colson Montgomery. How concerned were you about just his season? Did it change your outlook on him at all? We know he played pretty well down the stretch at Charlotte and had his nice cup of coffee in Arizona. But how troubling was the season for you, if it was at all?
I'm probably the high man on Colson. I know there's a lot of think, okay, he's not developing as a hitter. But you have to look at, he only had 51 games at Double-A over the last 2 years and missed a big chunk of 2023. So going to Triple-A this year at 22 years old, 21, whatever he was this year, that was a big move. But he did get better. They worked on his swing and made some adjustments. He started using the whole field. And you tie that in with the strike zone awareness he has. He may have a better hitter, a different hitter when he comes back next spring. And, of course, he did well in the Fall League. I like what he did there. And with the caveat that you can't take a lot of you can't look at Fall League statistics or even at performance that much and think, oh, okay, look what this guy's done. Because the pitching was really bad this year in the Fall League, more so than usual. But the fact that he did well is a positive thing.
It seemed like last year his approach in the Fall League was a lot more aggressive than it was this year. It seemed like he was taking a lot more pitches, which was nice to see.
Yes, absolutely. I think, again, it's that natural strike zone awareness he has is going to be beneficial to him.
So Noah Schultz, it's looking like he, most places have him at least in the top 2 left-handed starters in minor league baseball right now. What do you want to see from him in the upcoming season?
In the past years, we said we want to see him stay healthy, have a completely healthy season, and pitch deep into his starts. He was healthy this year, and that's good. Let's hope he stays healthy. But he needs to continue getting deeper into his starts and not be 3-4 innings. So that's what I look for him. He's got everything else. So I don't know what else we'd look for other than pitching deeper into his starts and showing he can do it.
Yeah, the other guy of that left-handed twin towers for the White Sox, Hagen Smith. What have the scouts said about him?
I did see him one of his brief outings, the last one before he went to Winston-Salem. I think it was 2 innings, and he flashes two double-plus pitches. And now I hear sometimes people comparing him to Carlos Rodon from the slider-heavy perspective. But all the scouts that I talked to said, we want to see the changeup. We want to see him develop a changeup. And I think that's the key as to what kind of pitcher he turns into.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think, Ian, you and I have kind of talked about, we were wondering if he went cutter at all, just because, with Brian Bannister in this organization, Noah Schultz added a cutter, Garrett Crochet added a cutter. So, yeah, I mean, definitely a third pitch that he's going to need against righties for sure. I'm just not sure what it is.
That wouldn't surprise me. They haven't really had that much time with him, and usually first year you just want him get him in, let him pitch a little bit. In fact, I was surprised he pitched at all. A lot of teams shut down their high draft picks, like the Mariners with their 2 guys. They didn't pitch in any games, and the Reds, Chase Burns finally pitched 1 inning on the last day, their last game of Instructional League. So the fact that he pitched 2 times here and then 4 games in Winston-Salem, was that what it was, I think?
I think 10 innings or something. Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that total. Yeah, it was interesting. So I know you said, obviously Teal just got to the org. You know a little bit about Edgar Caro, obviously. Just what do you think about the plan in general of just 2 top 100 catchers that are close to the majors? Me and Ian have kind of kicked back and forth the idea they're probably going to both be at Charlotte. Just, what do you think about that as far as development wise, and then just having, 2 catchers that could end up being pretty good?
I don't have any inside information on this, but my guess is that they will both be in the lineup every day and going back and forth between catching and DH. And I looked at how often, with both of them, looked to see how often they caught and how often they DH. And it was like a 2/3, 1/3 for both of them. So if, at least for the first half a year, it's, you're catching 50% of the time, DHing 50% of the time, I don't think that'll affect their development behind the plate at all. And again, by the middle of the season, Teal could be in the big leagues, and Kiro will have the job all to himself.
So one guy that we're very high on in our top 30, Grant Taylor. How high do you think his ceiling is?
I think he can be a mid-rotation starter. Again, he needs to stay healthy, and because he had the Tommy John. He came back. He was really good at Winston-Salem, or was it Kannapolis, where he went 25-1 strikeout to walk ratio. I've never seen that kind of those kind of numbers. But and then he had I think it was a lat injury, so he didn't get back until the fall league. His numbers there weren't very good. But scouts loved him. And I'll tell one story. I was at a dinner, happy hour, whatever it was, with a bunch of scouts and media. And I'm talking in one conversation, and out of my ear, I hear 2 scouts who had never seen Taylor before fall league. I hear them mention his name. And I said, what about Grant Taylor? They said, he can pitch. He's going to be a good one. So, there's something there. Again, just needs to stay healthy.
So one of the other guys that we were super high on pretty early, George Wilco. What did you think about the season that he had this year?
Big George gets a lot of different opinions from people when I talk to him. Yeah, mainly they're concerned about the high strikeout rate. And will that ever get any better? He's got that long swing, long levers. But I look at it, he was 18 years old playing low A. And one of the I think one of the worst things for player development that happened was when Major League Baseball cut out that short season level. At 18, he could have been at Great Falls with the thin air and balls flying. Would that have helped him? Helped his strikeout rate? I don't know, but I think it would have been a better environment for him just to develop. The one thing that I heard in talking to White Sox people is how good his makeup is and how hard he works at it. Like after every game, he goes back, watches video, talks to okay, why did I miss this pitch? Why, what should I have done with this pitch? So that I think that's a big optimistic thing. He'll be 19 next year. Do you keep him at Kannapolis another year or send him to Winston-Salem? We'll see. But at some point, the strikeout rates have to come down. But he's got that 70-grade raw power, and as he gets more experience, he will get in and be tapping into that more.
Had you seen him much early this year? Were you surprised by the move to Kannapolis?
A little bit, yeah. I figured he would stay in Arizona League at least until maybe August there. Well, and the Arizona League ended in late July, that they'd keep him here. I was kind of surprised with that.
Yeah, I think we were a little bit surprised too. I just feel like they thought that he just wasn't going to be challenged enough there, and they were willing to, live with the strikeouts and whatnot. So yeah, it's just kind of curious. So obviously we talked about Hagen Smith. White Sox had a pretty top-heavy draft, even though some have said it was pretty good. 2 high school guys up at the top, Caleb Bonham, Blake Larson. You've seen both of them. What are your thoughts on those 2 guys?
I saw Caleb Bonham as an amateur at the big events, and he always did well. I think it was PG National. He had a couple home runs at Chase Field. He did well in area code games, which was a little bit of his breakout. But then watching him instructional league, and he played shortstop every game, and I probably saw the White Sox about 6 times, but he was out there every time. I just love the way he plays, his actions on the field. Can he stay at shortstop? It depends on where the body goes in the next few years. But I'm a big fan of Bonham. As far as Blake Larson, they held him out of games early. He's very thin, so they needed to build up the strength. And I talked to him one day when I was out there, and mentioned I had seen him at area code games, and a nice kid. But finally, towards the end of instructional league, they got him in games, and I missed a couple of them because of someone else that I needed to go see. But it was their last instructional league game. They were playing a Mexican Winter League team that was in the area for the Mexican baseball fiestas they have here every fall. So he's facing older hitters, guys who are used to off speed, and they couldn't touch his slider. He pitched 2 innings. I think I'm going on memory. I think he struck out 4 batters, but the sweepy slider was his swing and miss pitch. And he was up to 95. There's a lot of area to put on weight and strength with him. So, and he fits the profile. He's a low slot lefty. White Sox like those guys.
Seems like they have a type. So White Sox fans, and we don't generally know a whole lot about some of the Dodger guys that they got back in return. Alexander Albertus and Joral Perez. Do you have any thoughts on those two?
I saw both of them quite a bit in their years with the Dodgers, both in Structural League and the Complex League, and then I saw Rancho Cucamonga for a couple games this year on one of my California trips. I like Albertus a little bit better, although I could change from day to day on that. I think he has a little more upside than Perez. He maybe can stay in the left side of the infield, where Perez is going to be limited to second base. Perez, you can bet on the bat a little bit more, but Albertus is 1 year behind him in development. So I'll be curious to see what they both do this year.
Yeah, the Joral Perez, I saw his debut with the Cannonballers after he got moved over, and from what I saw, it seems like there's a little bit more power in Perez's bat.
He has gotten substantially stronger since he first came to the States. That is one thing, which is in part why he's limited to second base at this point, or first base if they feel he needs there. I don't think left side of the infield is going to be a thing for him, where it probably can be for Albertus. There's still questions about his quickness and how much will he grow, but I like both of them. They're, again, I think the way we have them in the handbook, we rank them back to back, and I think at the last minute I might have flipped them, so I'm not even sure who's ahead of the other one, but they're next to each other.
White Sox also, they took some college bats in July. Two of those guys, Casey Saki and then Nick McLean. I know McLean didn't play at all, but you saw him in college. Just what do you think of those two guys? And then just any insight on McLean as far as just what the issue was, why he couldn't get out to an affiliate?
Well, McLean, he got on the field, but not batting in a couple of instructional league games. They had him out in the center field. So he could field, he could throw. He had a hamate surgery back early in his second year at ASU, missed the early part. I've had area scouts that said, I don't think he was right the whole year. So I'm sure once White Sox drafted him, it's like, okay, we need to get this hand completely healed. But he hit well. His numbers were really good at ASU this year. So even with a bad hand, he hit well. He's a McLean. I think he's going to overachieve for his size. They're all small guys that play bigger than their size. So, I'll be curious to see him. You mentioned Casey Saki. He would have been at the back in my top 30 if not for the Crochet trade. He's got a plus arm, can stay in right field. One thing I noticed in researching him, he really cut down on the strikeouts between his sophomore and junior year at UVA. So, is he a first division regular? I don't know. We'll see on that. But he's an interesting guy.
You mentioned, do you think they're going to try to play Nick McLean in center?
That's a good question. He was mainly right field at ASU, but I don't know.
He's got a big throwing arm, but he's a smaller guy. I just didn't know. I was curious.
Yeah. Where they plan to play him, I don't know. I just know that. Actually, I think I saw him in right field also when he played the field in instructional league. He can probably play all three, and that's good value. That's good value out of somebody like him.
Keeping things in Arizona here, Luis Reyes, and I'm going to probably butcher this name, but Yoiker Fajardo.
That's the best I could do with it, too, so you're okay.
Their recent international signings, how did they look in Arizona?
Reyes, in talking to scouts, they thought Reyes was the best pitching prospect on the ACL team this year. I think he signed for $700,000. So, and did spend his year in the DSL, but I thought he looked stronger this year. So, his fastball, he's got both two-seam and four-seam fastballs, touching 97, and a pretty good slider, 81 to 84. So I think he's ready to go out to Kannapolis this year. Fajardo was one of the few DSL players that came up to the States. They can't bring them all up anymore like they used to because I'm sure you know this rule that came in the latest collective bargaining agreement is once they come to the States and do anything on the field, they have to be put on a roster. So, and they can't go back to the DSL then. So some teams don't bring anybody up until the next year and sometimes after spring training when they've cleared roster spots. But Fajardo, I know he had a good year in the DSL. I did see him once, maybe twice. Fastball was sitting around 92. They say he can add more as he gets stronger and more mature. He had a little more of a mature body than I had anticipated when I saw him, but I think there's still room to add strength and get a little more velocity in that fastball. But he misses bats with a slider that's around 82. And it got short leg break, so I think that's a swing and miss pitch.
Keeping it with international signings for the White Sox here. A guy that we are we're pretty enthralled with, and we hear lots of varying opinions about what they think that possibly could be. But Javier Mogollon, what are your opinions on him?
My concern with him, and I saw him a lot this summer, he takes a big swing, big cuts, big power. He stole a lot of bases. He showed that we thought of him as more a second baseman originally, but he showed that he could handle shortstop. But at 38% strikeout rate in rookie ball, that's a big red flag. Okay, and they probably need to tone down the swing a little bit. That's my only concern is how much he struck out as a 18-year-old in rookie ball. But he is an exciting player to watch, no doubt about it.
You kind of mentioned to me off air, you'd probably keep him there another year, you said, right, if it were up to you?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. Again, yeah, he'd be a great one to get sent to Great Falls and let him see the big sky country. But whether he goes out to Kannapolis or not, probably, I don't. They probably can't answer that.
Yeah, no,
to see how he does in spring training, and I have no idea what they're working with him in the off season either. So
it's just a tough decision to make because it's such a big jump, right? Like guys aren't ready. You either have to keep them there or take a giant leap of faith. It's kind of rough. So we've talked about a bunch of guys. Obviously, you've seen, you go to Instructs, right? So you've seen a lot of players that people aren't familiar with. That is there just somebody we didn't ask you about? A couple of guys we should keep an eye on. You think?
Well, probably everybody wants to know about the Rule 5 pick. First overall Rule 5 pick is Shane Smith. So I didn't have much information on him, but I called my super scout, my guy that knows, what kind of information we look for, and got a nice long report. So I'm going to look at my paper. He's had TJ in the past. This guy kind of put him as a 6-starter bulk inning reliever profile. He's 92 to 94, touching 95. I think when he was pitching out of the bullpen, he might have gotten a touch higher than that. The fastball has downhill movement and cut action, and the velo would probably tick up in a 1-inning relief role. But even though he had high strikeout totals, my guy said there was no real strikeout pitch, and probably looking at more at the major league level. So he added a sweeper because everything was vertical movement before that. And he added a sweeper later in the season. So that gives a different look. He's very good at getting batters off, throwing them off what am I trying to say? Throwing them off balance, his timing and everything he does there. But he doesn't really have a changeup. I think he threw something that was a split changeup. I know in the pitching data it got called a splitter. If he's going to be a reliever, if he's got a fastball and 2 breaking balls, is that enough? That's up to the White Sox to decide. But yeah, any questions on Smith? Anything special?
Yeah,
obviously he's going to be on the big league roster. Otherwise, he goes back to the Brewers.
Yeah, first pick in the Rule 5 draft on a bad team should probably make your team, you would think, right?
Yes.
So I think they'll let him come to camp as a starter, they've kind of said, but I think you're right. I think he's a bullpen guy. It's the easiest way to stash him for the year, too.
Now, another guy in the Structural League that caught my eye, and I only got to see him play in one half of a game, was William Bergoglio, who they got from the Phillies. I forget who was the other half of that trade. But it was a trade. Right. He's got advanced back to ball skills, kind of like if he got stronger, you'd say, well, maybe he could be Luis Arias, that kind of hitter. But he's very thin. He doesn't get big exit velocities. He needs to get a lot stronger. But he's an average or above average defender at both middle infield positions. What I liked about him, he plays hard, and he looks like he's having fun every minute he's at the ballpark or on the field, because there were times he didn't get in the game, and I'd watch him in the dugout and the bench, depending on where they were playing. And I thought, this guy is just having so much fun. I love ball players like that. So I came away very entertained by just watching him when he wasn't even in the game. So he's one I want to watch next year and see how he does. One more big guy to bring up that scouts were into was Pierce George, 13th round pick. And when I was looking up his numbers, He had 2 years in college. I think he might have done junior college, but he pitched a year at Texas and pitched only into the teens as far as number of innings. And then the same thing last year when he was at Alabama. And he walks more than a batter an inning, but he showed some interesting stuff in that, again, had the scouts intrigued by him. Fastball up to 100, and he flashed, one scout called it a curveball, a plus curveball, but I think everyone else has said it was a slider. So it's kind of like with Eric Adler. They had to get him throwing strikes before he became a notable prospect. But he's a big dude that throws hard, and I know he had a few games at Kannapolis, and we'll probably go back there or Winston, but he's certainly one that'll be intriguing to watch.
Yeah, Bill, one of the things we noticed, like when we covered the draft this year, and I talked to Mike Shirley after, was just like the White Sox took quite a few true relievers in the draft, and I think like sometimes that strategy is questionable, but you've brought it up a couple of times tonight, just minor league roster limits, that sort of thing. The White Sox have so many starting pitchers right now, and look, they're not all going to make it, right? It's kind of how this goes, but they really don't have rotation spots like to load up on more starters. So I thought it was like an interesting strategy to get some relievers that they thought were kind of like high upside.
Well, and look at how important relief pitchers have become, especially with starters often not going more than 5 innings and teams using the opener role. And take a look at what good relief pitchers we're getting at the trade deadline this year. You might as well fill up your system with a lot of these guys. One name, and I can't tell you anything about him other than his name. A scout mentioned him to me. I never did get to see the guy. His name is, I believe it was Phil Fox, was taken in the top 10 rounds. That's one that was very intriguing to scouts. And again, I can't tell you anything about what he was throwing. I didn't get to see him or didn't do a report on him or anything. But that'll be one to watch out for.
Yeah, did you get a chance to see Aaron Combs at all?
I did, yes. I don't. I know I took photos of him. I don't. He pitched an instructional league, and I know he was pretty highly ranked. I think he's one that should move quickly through the system. And that's the other thing with college relievers. You can get them, if they're throwing strikes, you can get them to AAA within a year or two.
We talked about a couple of the top starters. Are there any just, couple starters in this system that are further back that are like personal favorites of yours?
Well, we already talked about Grant Taylor because he's one. I've got to think if there's anyone else that jumps out at me. Mason Adams was ranked pretty high. And before you came on, I was talking to Ian. I said, I think a lot of my attitudes are starting to go back old school. I want pitchers that can throw strikes and have pitchability. Yes, it's fun to see guys throw a 98 or 100, but I want to see guys that can get batters out and aren't going to throw out their arm in a year or two. So Adams, I think I originally had him in the top 10 until he got bumped down because of the 3 guys going in ahead of him. So yeah, Mason Adams is one, definitely.
Yeah. Ian's a big Mason Adams fan. One of the other guys we like was we like Aldrin Bautista too, kind of.
Oh, I didn't. Thank you for reminding me of him. Yes, I like him a lot. He'll rank somewhere in the mid-teens. And is he a reliever? Is he a starter? that'll be determined coming down the road. But I'm pretty high on him.
Speaking of guys that the White Sox got in trades, Jairo Iriarte. Did you get a chance to watch him pitch in Arizona at all?
I did see him in spring training. In fact, I was on their backfields, and it was like 2 days before the Dylan Cease trade went down. And I don't want to say what scouts were there, but it was obviously he was being watched. But yeah, I do like him. He's in their top 10. He stays in their top 10, even with the new acquisitions. In question with him, the same as Batista, is he a starter? Is he a reliever long term? And I don't know that anybody has the answer to that yet.
There's been, Chris Getz was an internal hire. A lot of people weren't happy about it, but he's made a lot of moves on the personnel side that like an outsider would make, where he's brought in a bunch of guys from outside the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Just have you heard anything just about, just some of the guys he's brought in, like the job that people think I mean, it's quite the change in a year, I think, anyways.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about performance. Yeah, I know a lot of the people that he brought in. Actually, I haven't connected with Brian Bannister for about 10 or 12 years since he was playing with the Royals, but I know how highly regarded he is, and he has to be helping. Josh Barfield, the same thing, coming in. Gene Watson, I've known for years, and I know in talking to some of the scouts that work under him, they were pleased with some of the changes that were being made.
Seems like there's so many changes going on developmentally, and just in a shift in philosophy in the entire front office. For me, and I talked to James a lot. For us, it's super exciting after what we've been watching for the last 40 years. For me, anyway.
I think there's still improvement to be made in player development, and it's going to take time.
It does seem like a profile change a little bit on the hitting side, though, where it's more bat to ball guys that get on base. You see walk rates, like, finally, where this just like wasn't their drafts were like that. The few guys that they got at the deadline, that we talked about, seem to have good like strikeout to walk rates. It just seems like something they're focusing on, and maybe that adds to the depth that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I talked about Bonnemer and his good plate discipline and his bat the ball skills. And then I mentioned Bergoya, who again needs to add strength, but he's potentially a plus hitter when it all comes together. So yeah, they are adding players like that, and it's going to take time, as you guys know. You don't lose 121 games, was that what it was, and then turn around and win 80 or 90 the next year. It'll be a slow process.
Yeah, they've been. It seems like even past this year, the White Sox have been kind of pretty much since Shirley took over the drafts. Looks like they've been kind of prioritizing some OBP guys, because they've got they picked up Mario Camilletti, who walked 100 plus times. They picked up Terrell Tatum from NC State. He had 100 plus walks, and they just picked up Mydroth as well. So it looks like they are prioritizing, at least trying to find somebody that can be a table setter for the franchise at some point, hopefully.
I like that approach. I like what they're doing there.
So, Bill, how many years you been writing the White Sox list now?
I think this was about the 5th year, I'm going to say.
So that's like 10 lists, right? It's like twice a year? Do you do the rank, or you write it once and then they kind of shift around?
We kind of in the summer we'll do a shift, and then you add in the draft guys and the international guys. So it's kind of an ongoing process. But the big report, the top 30, and what goes in the prospect handbook, that work, we do some of the groundwork, of course, during the year, and I've got, I get notes back, from June or July I refer to, but getting the handbook out, that's the biggest issue. And if you talk to any of the full-time guys at Baseball America, that's what they're doing right now, probably up until 2 days before Christmas. And if Josh Norris hasn't lost it by now, because I think he had a lot of organizations to do, then he's hanging in there, though.
You good, James?
Yeah.
You got anything else?
Nope, that's it. Nope. Appreciate you coming on, Bill. Thanks.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you for the insight and all the knowledge. Do you want to let listeners know where they can find you on the internet and find your work?
Well, anything I write is on Baseball America. They have the prospect reports, plus I do a periodic report on a Royals prospect. But then you can look for my photos on Baseball America. They're in there every issue and most days online. But social media, I've cut back on that a little bit. We were talking before we started. I dropped my Twitter account a couple of years ago, and I just started a Blue Sky account, and a lot of the Baseball America writers are on there. And I think if you just look for Bill Mitchell, Arizona, I'll pop up.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it so much. And we'll catch up with you probably sometime into the season here.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
All right.